In the heart of Ireland, a discovery was made that would change history. A farmer stumbled upon something extraordinary. A body buried in a bog for over 2,000 years. The police were called to investigate what looked like a crime scene. But what they found wasn't evidence of murder. It was a time capsule from ancient times. This is the Lindo Man, one of only 2 preserved bodies ever discovered, from Iron Age Britain and Ireland. His skin still intact, his hair perfectly preserved. He looks as if he could wake up at any moment. How did this man end his life? Was it an accident or something more sinister? Scientists have been baffled by him for decades, and now we are bringing you closer than ever before. We will show you every detail, every mark on his body, and reveal secrets hidden within these layers. What do those marks tell us about his death? Who was this mysterious figure? Why does he look so lifelike even today? Join me as I take you back into the past to uncover the truth behind the Lindo Man. Click here to watch the full video and dive deep into one of history's greatest mysteries. In 2014, a group of construction workers in Dublin made an unexpected discovery. They found the remains of a man, and he was well preserved. When archaeologist Patrick Furlong was called to investigate this unusual find, he had no idea what he would uncover. The body lay face down on its side, with arms folded across his chest. He wore nothing but leather shoes and socks. His skin was still intact, and it looked like he'd been killed recently. But that couldn't be right. This man lived thousands of years ago, in Ireland, during the Iron Age. So how did he end up so well preserved? And who was he anyway? Was he a warrior? A king? What secrets does his well-preserved body hold? How did he treat his wounds? Why is he lying here at all? These are just some of the questions we will answer today. We'll take you inside the lab where experts examine him to learn more about his life, his death, and his burial. We're going to call our new friend Croghan Man because he was discovered near a hilltop site called Croghan Hill. Croghan Man is special for many reasons, but one reason stands out above others. It has everything to do with where he was buried and when he died. You see, around 2,000 years ago, Ireland was divided into small kingdoms ruled by kings. Then, after another few hundred years, the Romans arrived from Britain and conquered much of Europe, including Ireland. Now, if you were a king back then, you probably wanted your legacy remembered forever. So you might have built yourself a big castle or a grand tombstone. But not every king could afford such luxuries. Some may have simply been buried on top of their favorite hilltops, or maybe even within them. There weren't any written records left behind by these ancient rulers, though, so historians can only guess. That brings us back to our friend Croghan Man, who was found dead atop a hill that looks suspiciously similar to those described in old Irish legends. This is the oldest complete human body ever found. It's called Ötzi, and he was a tall man. He stood at around 5 feet 8 inches or 7 meters tall, and weighed in at about 69 kilograms. But what makes him so special? Well, it turns out that this guy had quite an interesting life. He was taller than most men of his time, wore wide shoulder pads, and had a big belly. He also suffered from arthritis and joint pain, and he even had some injuries like cuts on his hands, which could be signs of a fight or an accident. But what really makes him special is what he left behind for us to discover. Ötzi had a lot of stuff on him when they found him. He wore clothes made from animal skins and woolen textiles, and he also carried tools like an axe, knife, and bow with arrows. But one thing really stood out, and it wasn't something he could carry around in his pockets. It was actually on his wrist. You see, Ötzi had arthritis in both hands, which caused them to be stiff and painful. So how did he manage to do things? Well, he used some clever tricks. One trick involved using his wrists more than usual. This helped him grip objects better, without putting too much strain on his fingers or thumbs. Another trick involved wearing a special bracelet, made of copper wire. The bracelet wrapped tightly around his wrist joint to provide extra support and stability, making it easier for him to move without pain. Now here's where it gets interesting. Scientists have been able to recreate the exact type of bracelets that Ötzi would have worn. They even managed to make them look exactly like how they were back then. These are called the Ötzi bracelet. If you're interested in learning more about these, bracelets, and other cool facts about Ötzi. Check out our full video below. We dive deep into who he was, what happened during his lifetime, and why he matters today. Trust me, you won't regret watching it. This is the tallest full-body mummy ever found. He was a religious leader in ancient Egypt, but his remains were so well preserved that scientists could learn more about him than most other mummies from that time period. When archaeologists first discovered this man's tomb, they thought he had been buried alive. His body was wrapped up and put into an acidic tank to preserve it for eternity. But after several years of being submerged underwater, the water turned greenish-brown and began to smell like rotting flesh. Scientists quickly realized what happened here. Mummification is a process where people take bodies right after they die and wrap them tightly with linen cloth, so no air can get inside their skin or bones. The idea behind this practice back then was that if you kept your dead loved ones intact enough, then maybe one day when you died yourself, you would be able to come back as well. Because of how much effort went into making sure these mummified remains stayed pristine for thousands upon thousands of years, it makes sense why some might think this guy got caught up in something similar too. What really surprised scientists, though, wasn't just his height or weight either. When researchers examined him closely, they noticed something unusual inside his body cavity. Instead of being filled with organs like most mummies, he seemed almost hollowed out instead. Turns out he wasn't actually buried alive after all. Scientists believe that during mummification rituals, firewood fibers were stuffed into his stomach area, while he lay motionless on wet sand for several days straight. Over time, these wood chips absorbed moisture from nearby sources, like lakes or rivers nearby, causing them to expand until eventually filling every nook and cranny throughout his torso completely full. They also discovered evidence suggesting his heart may have been removed before death, due to its poor condition when found later on. Despite being nearly perfectly preserved today, however, we know very little else about him beyond that fact. His identity remains unknown forevermore. Still, thanks to modern technology advancements, researchers continue working hard towards uncovering more secrets, hidden beneath layers upon layers of history itself. In the movie 300, the Spartans are depicted as a fierce warrior people. But how much of this depiction is true? The film portrays them as brutal warriors who cut off their enemies' hands and heads as trophies after battle. While there is no evidence to suggest that Spartan soldiers actually did such things in real life, there was an ancient Greek practice known as mannequin, which involved cutting off the right hand of defeated enemies and displaying it on one's shield or armor. This gruesome act served as both a trophy and a sign of victory over one's enemy. However, what if I told you that there exists a rare example of this practice that has been preserved for thousands of years? A remarkable discovery made in Ireland has shed light on this ancient tradition. Meet Clonacavin Man, a bog body from Ireland. He is believed to have lived around 2000 BC, during the Bronze Age period. His remains were found in a peat bog near the town of Clonakilty, County Cork. Clonacavin Man's preservation is exceptional due to the unique conditions of his burial site. Bogs are acidic environments with low oxygen levels, which can preserve organic material remarkably well. As a result, Clonacavin Man's skin, hair, and even some internal organs have remained intact throughout millennia. What makes him particularly interesting is the presence of a wound on his left arm, indicating he may have been killed during a ritualistic sacrifice. Furthermore, researchers believe he might be connected to the practice of mannequin, although we cannot confirm whether he was sacrificed. For this purpose, his injuries suggest he could have been part of a ritualistic killing where his right hand was severed. If so, this would make him one of only two examples known to exist from the Bronze Age era. This is the body of a man who lived in Ireland. He was found with another human, a woman. They were buried together, and they're called Clonacavin Man and Woman. They are both incredibly well preserved because their bodies have been lying undisturbed for centuries. And there's something else that makes them special. The Irish language scroll on screen now is written by hand by someone from this time period. It describes how these two people died. According to the ancient text, the pair were murdered by rival clansmen. Their bodies were then cut into pieces and thrown into a bog. But what does all this mean? Why do we care about some dead people from thousands of years ago? Well, it turns out that bogs like this one are actually really important places for understanding our past. You see, when you put organic material, like plants or animals, into a bog, it can last for millennia. Bogs form naturally over wetlands when layers of peat build up. Peat forms as waterlogged soil that doesn't allow oxygen to reach its surface. Without oxygen, microbes cannot survive. So instead of breaking down organic matter, they turn it into carbon dioxide. As more layers of peat accumulate, boggy areas grow higher and higher, until eventually they become dry enough to support plant life again. That means that even though they look barren today, these bogs once supported thriving communities. And because they don't contain much oxygen, there aren't many bugs around either. So if an animal dies here, its remains will stay relatively intact for hundreds of years. In fact, scientists use bogs as natural archives of information about humans living long before us. By analyzing DNA samples taken from bones recovered from these sites, we can learn things such as where people came from, how they interacted socially, what diseases existed back then, whether certain groups interbred with others, etc. Plus, since most organic materials decompose quickly, under normal conditions anyway, this preservation effect works wonders for studying ancient artifacts too. In the 12th century, in a small village in England, a man was found dead on his farm. He had been known for being a kind and generous person, but he also had a secret that would shock everyone. The King of England heard about this man's death and ordered an investigation into his life. What they discovered shocked them all. This is the story of how one man's body revealed the truth behind his mysterious death. When the man's body was examined, it showed signs of severe malnutrition. His bones were thin and brittle, his skin pale and dry. But what really surprised scientists was something else entirely. They noticed strange markings on his hands that looked like scars from wounds. And when they opened up his stomach, they found something even more bizarre inside. It turned out that this poor man had been living off just bread and water for years before he died. Scientists believe that these injuries may have happened during times of famine or war, when food was scarce and people struggled to survive. What if you could eat meat every day, and it was as cheap and easy to get as water, but one bite would cost your life? This is the story of King Ivar, a king who ruled a land rich in resources, and whose people were free from hunger for generations. But when he made a fateful decision, he brought his kingdom to its knees. His subjects starved while he feasted alone, unaware that each meal was slowly killing him. The truth behind this deadly feast will shock you. A curse, a betrayal, or something far worse. Want to know how this tragedy unfolded? Watch the full video on our channel now. Don't miss out on this gripping tale of power, hunger, and survival against all odds. Click the link below to watch the complete story and uncover what really happened to King Ivar. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any part.